So, good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank Professor Sendarasu for his warm welcome. Today, I'll be dealing mainly with PLC in industry, mainly applications. I've got a couple of videos. So, if you have any doubt, you can interrupt anytime. You need not wait for the session to end. You can interrupt and ask so that we can clarify it then and there. Okay, next, moving on to the next slide. So the topic is application of PLC in industries. So before that, I just want to give a brief introduction about our company. Our company is Intech Systems Chennai Private Limited. It is at Chennai. We also have a branch in Kovai also. This company was started by our MD, Mr. P. Doraisamy, in the year 1987. Initially, we were dealing only with weighing, industrial weighing. And in 1996, the company has started automation business. We have around, at present, more than 190 staff in the automation division. The main strength of the company is stock. We have around 160 million INR as stock. The turnover for the industrial automation business group is INR 600 million last financial year. So Intech, you start as a company, now it's a group with various other activities. Now the group turnover is around 1.5 billion INR. So the main business is the industrial automation. And then we have a panel and project division that is at Singaperumal Koil, about 40 kilometers from Chennai. Then we have a craft paper mill of capacity 150 tons per day. That is at Paramati Vellore. Then we have organic farming, wind energy, and then crumb rubber recycling unit. Then LED lighting, brand Inno. We have a Inno brand of LED lighting. It's a sister concern. Then we have a largest Reliance petrol bunk in Tamil Nadu. It is also in Singaperumal Koil near Chennai. Actually, our business associates are mainly Omron, Delta, Atonics, and Mitsubishi. Apart from that, we have Oriental Motors, Honeywell, Nova Technic, IPA, and United Technomac Engineers. So coming to the main subject, the PLC today starts from a very simple machine to a large-scale process automation. If you see, the majority of PLCs are used in simpler machines rather than the process automation. Because process automation, once established, it runs. But whereas these machines are produced day in and day out. So we'll be seeing different industries in the coming slides. So before that, I just wanted to tell you what are the industries where we do it and what is our application. This is only a partial list. The exhaustive list will run into hundreds. So first thing is automotive industry. Then we have water treatment plants, assembly automation, packaging industry, white goods manufacturers, tire industry, leather, cement, steel, textile, and chemical industry. And other application mainly today we're concentrating is on data traceability, which I'll be explaining to you at the almost at the end. First, we'll see what are the different industries and what are the applications in that. Okay. So again, if you see this, I've just taken Omron as an example. What are different ranges of PLCs? One is the CP1, it's a micro PLC. Then we have CJ2 series, compact modular PLC for bigger machines and process. CS1 is a rack based. This PLC is mainly used in the process industry also, and it has got redundant CPU, redundant power supply, and like. So then we have machine automation controllers, which is also a part of PLC, which is used in this traceability applications and in assembly line control. So first, I'm just taking one example. The first example is machine tools. So this is one small sequence of operation. See, this is what we call as the sequence of operation. So we give a cycle start, then the drill head moves forward rapidly, then the drill head, once it hits the forward limit switch, it will move and feed. Feed is a very slow movement. While drilling, we cannot move the drill very rapidly, it will break the drill. So that is feed. Then at the end of the feed, there is a dwell. Just to clear the burr, we dwell. Dwell is nothing but a small delay. After that, drill head retracts to mid position, and then there is one indexing. Indexing is rotation of the component. It's called indexing. Then we have the next cycle after indexing: drill head forward feed, feed end dwell, drill head retract to mid position, index 2. Similarly, we have another cycle, third indexing, then final indexing. You have a drill head forward, feed end, dwell, and this time the drill head has to move to home position. Now, if you see, I'll just play the video once again for your understanding. If this sequence is clear, is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. This is cycle start. See here it is just stopping in the mid position. Okay. Now if you see, cycle start. Clamping, drilling. See, now you see that now the drilling will go back to the mid position and it will not retract totally. This is the fourth drilling operation. After that, it will go back. See, now you see the drill has gone back totally. That's all. See, so all these sequences we require PLC to program. PLC should know whether it has completed the first drill or the second drill or the third drill. So for these three drilling operations, similar retraction will be there. And after the fourth, it gets a signal that it is complete. So it goes back to the home position so that it will be easier to remove the component. Okay. This is one more drilling machine, just for an understanding, I'm repeated it. There's a solid bar here. So it is drilling at a regular pitch. So far it is clear. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, now we have seen the drilling. Now we are going to see the combination of drilling and tapping. I think you all know what tapping is, no? Making a thread is called as tapping. Here it's totally auto loading. They're making a cross hole. Simultaneously, one drilling and one tapping will be done. Okay. These are mainly metal cutting operations where I've just given just a few examples like drilling, tapping only. There are other things like milling, boring, and then we have the burnishing and many operations. So all these machines operate on the same principles using small PLCs. Then the next major area is assembly automation, automatic assembly. Here I've just say, for the sake of simplicity, I've taken this O-ring fitting on a small fitting. How to fix an O-ring on a fitting. So this is one small video. You'll understand how O-ring is being fitted here. These are all small pneumatic pick and place systems. The station places the component on the fixture. The O-ring is expanded and fitted onto it. This is the unloading portion. The component is taken away from the jig, unloaded. So this is one small operations I've shown you. Similarly, there are many things like spring assembly, even the total car seat belt is that assemblies are a very critical parts and very minute. They are all done using PLC only. So the next slide I'm showing is, these are the major components. Like we have a PLC, then we have HMI, then servo motor. This is actually for indexing, they use servo motor. Then pneumatic cylinders, reed switches. Reed switches, push buttons, these are all control elements which are feedback devices. Okay. So this is a total setup of components what are used in that machine. So, we've seen metal cutting, we've seen assembly. Now we'll see the motor automation line. See, this is, I've just taken a very common example. This is the armature of a mixie motor. Everybody will be having a mixie at home. So this process called trickle impregnation of armature. So these armatures revolve around 18 to 20,000 RPM. That's the speed with which these RPMs revolve. So at that speed, whatever copper is bound on the armature, these windings tend to fly off. So to avoid this, what is done is they impregnate varnish. Varnish is nothing but a resin plus a hardener. We call it as varnish in the general term, but it is basically a resin only. They are poured into this winding and cured. So once it is cured, it's something like araldite. So it becomes a very strong single mass. So the copper doesn't fly off. So this process involves preheating. Like there should not be any moisture between the windings. So there'll be a preheating. Then this varnish will be trickled. It has to be poured in a very small thin stream so that it enters, due to capillary attraction, it will enter all the parts of the winding. After that, it has to be cured at around 120, 130 degrees centigrade. It will be cured so that it forms a solid mass. So this is done automatically, and this machine is also PLC controlled. This is actually pouring of mixture of resin and hardener. So it is being poured onto this as it revolves. Okay, this is a armature trickle impregnation. So what are the main components? We have a PLC. Then for the movement, indexing and rotation, we have a motor, induction motor. Then we have a HMI. Then dispensing pump. To pour the varnish in correct quantities, we have a dispensing pump. Then we have a RTD or thermocouple to measure the temperature of both the preheating and the curing zone. Finally, we have the control elements. So this is all about trickle impregnation. Now I'm moving on to another process, which is the water treatment. See, if you take water treatment, there are different water treatment. Basically, water treatment, reverse osmosis process. Then we have the STP, that's sewage treatment plants, ETP, effluent treatment plants. I've just taken water treatment RO plant as an example. First, we have water is filled in a clarifier where there is some chemical dosing. From there, the water is pumped onto the raw water tank. Then we have chlorination, antiscalant and dosing systems. Then it goes through the first pass, reverse osmosis. So reverse osmosis, there will be a membrane. Osmosis is a process wherein thinner liquid enters into a thicker medium through a semi-permeable membrane. Reverse osmosis, by applying light pressure, we are reversing the process. Then there is the one pass. In that, you'll get a clear water that is directly going to the second RO systems. So first pass, and then we have the sorry, there is a small confusion here. 1 minute. This first pass will go directly to the product tank. For second pass, it will go through the second pass for treatment. Whatever is rejected here will go through and then go to the product tank. Probably there's I've made some corrections. I think I've taken the wrong slide here.
Excuse me, sir.
Pardon?
Sir, in the previous video, you have shown that the armature impregnation, sir.
Yes, sir.
There is
Can you speak a bit louder, sir?
So in chat box, there is one question asked: what is for that blue color solution?
Okay, I'll just look into it, sir. 1 minute. Okay. Yes, sir. I'll answer the question now.
Okay.
Are you able to see this, sir? Hello?
Video not visible, sir.
Are you able to see this?
No, sir. PPT slide only we can able to see, sir.
Okay, okay. So 1 minute, sir. I'll just change over.
Okay. Yeah, now it's okay, sir. I can run.
Oh, now it's clear.
Yeah. It's,
This is the part he's asking. No, what is the blue fluid?
yes, I think so.
Actually, what happens is the, the resin is for the winding, but when it is near the commutator, there should not be any loose ends. That is where it is being tied, and there's a lot of gap there. So generally, what they do in conventional armatures, they use a thread to tie it, that portion of it. Here they are using another type of resin to bond it. Sir.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is a different medium altogether, and it has better filling, because at the end, if you see any winding, there will be a lot of gap there. It's not possible to completely fill with varnish. So this is something like tying it with a rope. They are filling this resin. Sir, understood? Is it clear?
I think, sir, that Cyril, I think, hope you understood. Yes, he replied, yes, understood, sir.
Where is it? I'm not able to get the chat box.
Yes, sir. Cyril, he explained, he understood, sir.
I'm not able to get the chat box. That's
Okay,
the
no issue, no issue.
1 minute. Huh? Where is the chat box, sir? This one or?
I don't know.
Hello?
Yes, sir. I don't know actually. In your screen, I couldn't. Maybe on the top of the screen where the mute and the video will be there. I think there'll be. I think maybe there's
Mute is there. Video
mute
security
video.
participants.
Next to participants, sir.
I have to pull it down. Invite is there.
Uh,
New share, pause, annotate, remote control. Yeah, it's here. Okay, understood. Right. Yeah, this is the corrected slide. So after the first pass, it goes to the product water tank directly. Then after that, there's a second RO treatment, and the treatment is rejected and let out. So if you see this RO plant, what are the main components? We see is the HMI, we have the PLC, we have water pump, we have a dosing pump for dosing chemicals, then we have a level switch, then we have control elements and SCADA. Sometimes it's a bigger plant, they have a SCADA for monitoring. Coming to the leather industry, there is one more big market for PLCs, the leather industry. And here mainly Omron PLCs are used because a lot of leather making machines are designed, manufactured at in Italy, in Europe. So this is called the leather shaving machine. You can just see the video, I'll explain to you later.
Sir, in chat box, one question, sir.
Ah,
What kind of product this? What is this usage?
this one?
What kind of product this? What is this usage? They have one.
I'll just explain. I'm just going to explain to you, sir.
Okay.
So this is basically a leather machine. Okay. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is a leather machine. This is called leather shaving machine. The processed leather skin, rather not processed hide or skin, will be having this hair. So this machine is mainly used to remove that hair and maintain an uniform thickness in the leather for further processing.
Okay, sir.
So this, how it is done is, this leather is being passed between the rollers. There is one plain roller and there is one cutting knife. This is called the cutting knife. So as it rotates, it removes the hair, and even if it is too thick, even the thickness a bit of the skin is also removed. This process is called leather shaving machine. So in this machine, according to their requirement, they can adjust. Automated means it moves forward and reverse automatically, and there is a very precise adjustment of the thickness to which it has been shaved. That is the distance between the two rollers, the gap between the 2 rollers.
Bhanupriya madam, hope you understand.
Yes, madam.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are different components used here? Here again PLC HMI. We have VFDs for blade rotation and thickness adjustment. We have VFD and the motor. Then we have encoder feedback for thickness feedback. No, this is not a base water treatment. This is a different. I told you, no, this is a leather making machine. You're talking about this only, Mr. Cyril.
Cyril sir, it's a next process, next application where it is used in leather industry. It's not related with water treatment. It is the next application or next process.
This is basically, if you see, I'll just play a very short portion of the video again. This is basically leather. This is pre-processed leather. It's not totally processed, pre-processed leather. They're sending it through the machine. So any hair is removed and even the thickness of the leather is kept uniform.
Sir, is that leather is been stretched, sir?
Pardon?
Is that leather is being stretched out?
No, not stretched, sir. It is not being. It's actually only cleaning.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So how it is done is, it has got blades here. So these blades revolve along. There's one plain roller, there's one blade. When the skin is passed or leather is passed between this.
Inserted.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, I didn't play this slide first. That is the problem. So the title was not there. So there's a doubt here. So another industry I'm just moving on to is packaging machinery. Packaging machinery, there are a lot of packaging, product packaging. Then we have food eatables packaging, like raw material like pepper. Then mustard, all these are being packed, even turmeric powder, and then chips like Lays, all are being done in a packaging machinery. It's again automated process. This machine is called form fill seal machine. Form means this will come as a single sheet. This will be formed into a tube. Then the material will be filled and then sealed. So it's called form fill seal machine. So this is all about packaging machine, but here what they've shown is very slow because the video to explain they just given it very slowly. But these machines are run at very high speeds. Any doubt in this?
No, sir.
Okay, now we'll move on to a different industry, the process industry. I just taken this tire as an example.
A tire is round and it is black. However, if you examined all the manufacturing stages, you would realize what a complex product lies beneath this plain exterior. In actual fact, leaving the natural and synthetic rubbers aside, more than 200 different materials are combined to manufacture the tire that we know so well. There is carbon black, silicon, and sulfur, plasticizers, vulcanizing agents. There are also cores, a lot of cores, which in fact can be either steel or fabric such as polyester and Kevlar. These different raw materials are used to produce a wide variety of components. Flat or profile products, steel cord or fabric plies, and also bead wire. These components give the tire its elastic properties, ensure its resistance to wear, provide adhesion, and determine its service life. It all begins in the tire building drum, which is a rotating cylinder with a flexible center so that its edges can be brought closer to each other. You'll see why in a minute. A thin, perfectly airtight sheet of synthetic rubber must first be laid down on the drum. This will act as an inner tube inside the finished tire. The second layer is called the casing line. Why? Because it contains the framework of parallel fabric cord, which we call the casing. This assembly is the vital substructure and consequently a key component in the radial tire. Set tightly against strips of profiled rubber are two high-resistant steel wire hoops, which are known as the bead wires. They hold the tire firmly on its rim. The casing ply is then folded up over the bead wires to hold them securely in place. Other components are added with the same degree of accuracy. Some tires have dozens. But don't worry, I'll describe them all in detail. However, take a look at the sidewalls. They are made of rubber, both flexible and tough, to protect the tire from side impact. Then, by inflating the central part of the drum, its edges are brought closer to each other. The tire is shaped. The reinforcing tread plies providing directional stability and mechanical resistance have yet to be added. Fine but highly resistant steel cord strengthens these plies. Being laid crosswise to the casing ply, it forms shape-retaining triangles. Now it's time to lay down the tread rubber. It is this part of the tire which will have a tread pattern and will be in contact with the road surface. The unfinished tire is then put into the curing mold, which has all the tire markings and the tread pattern. A curing bladder filled with hot pressurized water forces the rubber back into the mold cavities. The hot water and steam around the mold start the curing process. This curing, or vulcanization, chemically bonds the rubber compounds to the steel and fabric cord reinforcement components. During this chemical reaction, the tire goes from a plastic to an elastic state. Sometime later, the transformation is complete and the tire emerges from its metal shell. The tire has been given its final features and finished to shape. Michelin, a better way forward.
So this is called the tire building process. It's almost like a manual process. The tire building, no, layer by layer, they have to keep fixing on it and on individual tires. And finally, it has to be moved on to the curing press where it will be cured. Any doubt?
No, sir. I think proceed. You can.
Pardon?
No, sir. No, sir. Participants, any doubt you can raise.
You're all E&I staff, sir?
Mixed, sir.
Okay.
Triple E, ECE, and few mechanical also.
So PLC has become a very common subject for everyone.
Yeah. PLCs for all branches we have PLCs.
So in the tire industry, again, we have the conveyor motor, then we have load cell for weighing, then we have thermocouple, then control elements, and HMI. So this is what basically I've taken some few samples, and wherever I could get clear videos only I've taken, and there are lots and lots of process in YouTube. Depending on your interest, you can go through YouTube and you can see the process. But this is to have a basic understanding, so that I think so the whole course you have learned about PLC programming and all that. So before you do the programming, you should understand the process. So once you are very clear with the process, then programming is simple. Without understanding the process, it is very difficult to program a machine. So this will give what all slides are taken is from wide industries, like totally wide range. So one from each very popular industries where PLCs are used. So this will help you in developing programs. The next portion I'm going to discuss is about traceability. Today, traceability is the word, like after the Industry 4.0, IIoT, and all such words are being used here. So this traceability is the order of the day. So I'll just briefly explain to you the traceability and have a small video about the facility what we have in our office, HO. Any of you can come and see that facility whenever you are in Chennai. You can just fix up with us. You can come and visit our experience center. We have made a real-time model of traceability. Before going to that video, just to understand what traceability is, I'll just go through this video. We have something called a data acquisition software. So what traceability is, any product made in the industry undergoes a process. So there are various processes, like it may be a machining process, it can be a heat treatment process, or it may even be a quality inspection. So it has to pass through all this before it becomes a full-fledged product to go into the main products. Like for example, a carburetor or a self-starter motor of a car goes into the main product called the car. So during the lifetime of the car, if there's any problem with the product, we generally get a replacement based on manufacturing defect. If there's a manufacturing defect, we get a replacement. If it is a wear and tear, we may not get replacement. But how to evaluate whether it's a manufacturing defect or not? This is where traceability comes in. So suppose you buy a car and within a week or 10 days, there's a failure of wiper motor. So you take it to the dealer who has separated the car and give, because it's just 1 week old, it's within warranty and he'll give a replacement. But it doesn't stop there. They'll try to find out, the manufacturer of the car, try to find out what exactly has caused the problem. So they send this back to the wiper motor manufacturer. The wiper motor manufacturer will have the total data of the process in which this wiper motor was produced, starting from the raw material, who has done the pressing, who has done the electrical winding, who has done the testing. All that will be recorded. That is called data acquisition or a database. We have it in a database, and to trace back is called the data traceability. So this, every product will have one barcode. So once the barcode is scanned, you'll get all the data about the product, when it was manufactured, what time it was manufactured, who was the person who did it in that shift, operator onwards, supervisor onwards, all the data will be available, and this will help them to avoid such failures in future. Suppose somebody has missed to do some, put a washer, somebody missed to lubricate it. So with this, what they do, they strengthen the process by introducing some foolproof method, what we call it as okay. So this is how the product quality is being improved. And today it is becoming more and more important because we are able to manage a lot of data. Like now we have in software, we have big data, data mining, and all such facilities. So any amount of data we are able to manage. So this has become very common. So what in Intech we have a product called a DAQ, and we also have a Omron NJ PLC, which has got SQL database connectivity. So with this, we are doing projects in mainly in the automotive sector. So in the automotive sector, suppose you want to do implement this traceability, what will happen to the existing PLC? So that is a question raised by the decision makers. What is the benefit we get of our upgrading? And what will be the production loss if this IIoT system fails? Will it work with my ERP or SAP? Who will take care of the IT and cloud portion? Will automation IT vendor blame each other? See, there's something called IT vendor, there's an automation vendor. Automation vendor does the PLC programming and all that. IT vendor does data acquisition part of it. But if there are two individual portion, if some data is missing, then this person will blame the other person. So for all this, we have a answer. So whether it will work with the existing PLC, yes, we can make it work with the existing PLC. Probably we have to add a few one communication module to it. If it doesn't have Ethernet or Ethercat communication, we'll have a model. Then the second question what we saw is, what is the benefit? So traceability, production, fault data on a device, remote analysis are the benefit. So if it is not connected to IIoT, will the machine run? This is independent of machine sequencing. In no way it's going to stop the machine. Machine will keep running. IIoT will function independently. Suppose there's a communication issue or something, probably you may not able to acquire data, but still the machine will be running. Then can it be integrated to the ERP? Yes, it can be integrated to the ERP. Then cloud infrastructure, yes, Intech has got a facility to give you a cloud infrastructure. Then both the vendors, like we have both automation as well as IT in under one roof, so you will not have blaming. So the most demanding, we have Sysmac controller, which is cloud-enabled traceability solutions. Okay. Now all this will be covered in the video. So whenever there's a defective product, it will bring a big loss to the company. It will spoil their name. So I'll just play the video now. After seeing the video, we'll discuss.
Hello
Now,
everyone,
5 minutes.
welcome to our Experience Center. This is Ranjani from Intech Systems. I am here to explain about Industry 4.0 and we have
You're able to see this, sir?
Yeah, now it's coming, I think.
Yeah.
live demo setup for traceability
You're able to hear?
Yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir.
solution in our Experience Center. So let's get to know about Industry 4.0. It is a current trend. Hello everyone, welcome to our Experience Center. This is Ranjani from Intech Systems. I am here to explain about Industry 4.0 and we have live demo setup for traceability solution in our Experience Center. So let's get to know about Industry 4.0. It is a current trend in all industries and it is nothing but a real-time digital transformation of production data to cloud. It is also known as IIoT, which is Industrial Internet of Things. So why do we need to have real-time data? Let's all consider manufacturing industry for an example. There will be a lots of production and assembly process in their plants and different types of small and large components will be involved to produce a single product. So there are many possibilities for operator to make a mistake during a process. For example, they can miss some component to assemble or a defective and wrong component can also be assembled in a product. So as a result, a defective component will reach their customer, which leads to a customer dissatisfaction and business loss. And most importantly, brand image will be spoiled. And it is not very easy to trace where the mistake was happened and who is the responsible one. In this place, Industry 4.0 plays a vital role to avoid such situations, and it traces all the processes from raw material procurement to production, assembly, and dispatch to customers, and logs all these data in cloud for our future reference. So we can have information like where and when the product was produced, who is the operator, who have approved the product, and what are the components assembled, what is the temperature maintained, and etc. So all those data will be logged in cloud and can be viewed in daily and monthly report. Not only recording the data, we can also reject the defective product during the process itself, which prevents a defective product reach their customer. So now let us see how it can be done in industries. This is our experience center. Here we have a demo setup for traceability solution, IO links with EtherCAT IO modules, and safety solution, vision solution, motion control solution, that is VFD and servers, and finally robot and cobot solutions. So let us see the overview of its functioning. First, we will see about traceability solution. Here we have set up a 5 slave stations and 1 master station. In each station, we are using different kinds of PLCs and HMIs, and they are all connected through a common communication medium, Ethernet, and connected with Omron NJ controller. So in first station, we have Mitsubishi PLC and HMI.
Good morning.
In this station, Honeywell barcode printer is connected with a Mitsubishi PLC. It is a thermal barcode printer and have RS-232 communication to connect with PLC. In this station, the operator have to select the model of the product to be manufactured. Here we have 10 number of models, and these models will be fetched from the server. So when I select the particular model, the corresponding QR code will be printed using this Honeywell printer. QR code will contain the information of date, time, and model number. We can also customize this data as per our requirement. In second station, we are using Siemens PLC and HMI along with Omron barcode reader. So in this station, we will start with scanning the QR code, which is printed in the first station. So if the previous station data is okay, then only we will proceed with the next process. Otherwise, we will reject the product and send back to rework. The same process will be followed in station 3 also. So in this station, we have Delta PLC and HMI along with Omron barcode reader. And we have Epson thermal printer connected with Delta HMI. This is one of the main advantage of Delta HMI, to which we can directly connect the printer, so that there is no need to do any additional program for printer in PLC. In fourth station, we are using Omron PLC and HMI. In this station, we have basic type Omron vision camera. The vision system is mainly used for visual quality inspection. Using vision camera, we can check the presence of small components, color and shape of the product, and we can do measurement and code reading applications. So here we are reading OCR and QR code and transfer the data to PLC. And the PLC will transfer the data to Omron NG controller and check with the server. When the previous station data are okay, then only we will proceed with the next process. The fifth station is weighing station. Here we have a load cell and weighing meter connected with ABPLC. And in this station, we have a MTV, which is nothing but a machine TV interface. This is used to connect a monitor with PLCs, and this will convert the program logic into machine language. So we can use a large size displays as a HMI, and its programming is also similar to HMI program. We are considering this as a final station, and all the processes are completed, and we are taking the weight of the product, and we have set a target value as 2000. When the weight of the product is matches with the target value, then it will be qualified and dispatched to customer. This is our master station. Here we are using Omron NG controller, and it is connected with PC in which we have installed SQL server. The Omron NG controller is capable of connecting with the DB using any interface. So it can be communicated with SQL server, MySQL, or Oracle, and etc. This PLC will collect all data from every slave station and transfer them to cloud. And in every station, it will compare the current station data with previous station data and gives the result accordingly. And finally, all the station data will be logged in cloud, where we can get daily and monthly report, and we can also get report in a Excel format and can send mail to a concerned person. So this is how traceability works. Now we will move on to remote I/O stations. So what is remote I/Os? The I/O module is nothing but input and output modules to which we will connect the sensors and the actuators. The term remote I/O refers the I/O modules is installed in the distant place from the main PLC. Because in industries it is not possible to have field devices near the main control PLC. So we need a remote I/O modules. So with this remote I/O modules, the signals can be received from faraway sensors and the control signals can be sent to long distance to control valves, motors and other driving actuators. Here we are using Omron EtherCAT coupler which is connected with I/O modules and communicated with Omron MJ PLC through Ethernet communication. And this will eliminate the complexity of wiring and assures faster communications. In our experience center, we have connected I/O-Link sensors with these I/O modules. And the I/O-Link sensors are intelligent type sensors and it will give process data as well as sensor information like output signal quality, sensor temperature and sensor running time. Whereas the normal sensors only gives on or off signal. And these sensors will do self-monitoring and gives its status along with its serial number to I/O-Link master device. So that in case of errors, we can easily locate the faulty sensor instead of checking all the connected sensors in the field. Preventive maintenance is also possible with these sensors since it gives remaining running hours of the sensor. So we can replace them before it getting failure without affecting the protection. And the sensors has standard 3-wire type connection like non-I/O-Link sensor. So it can be connected with standard I/O modules also. But while connecting with I/O-Link master device, it will act as a I/O-Link sensor. In our experience center, we have connected I/O-Link photoelectric sensor, proximity sensor and displacement sensor and displays their values in HMI through communication. Next, we will see about safety solution. So what is the need for safety devices? As we know, the machines and robots will also be working in industries and they will be dangerous to human beings. So they should be isolated from them or in off condition when a human enters their workspace. So for that purpose, we need safety devices. There are lots of safety devices are available in the market like safety light curtain, safety scanner, safety door lock switch and safety mat and etc. And the majorly used safety devices in industries are safety scanner and light curtain. So we will see about the functionalities of light curtain and safety scanner in this video. Before that, we will see about safety over EtherCAT function, which is being implemented in our experience center using Omron safety controller, to which we have connected Omron safety light curtain and safety scanner. The safety over EtherCAT is mainly introduced to use the single communication medium for both control and safety data. Instead of connecting safety devices with the control PLC, we will connect them with the Omron safety controller, which supports safety over EtherCAT protocol. And the safety data will be transferred to the control PLC through EtherCAT communication for other process. And the safety interlock logic will be developed in the safety controller itself, so that we can get a faster response. If it is safety interlock logic in the main control PLC, then there may be some delay in taking immediate actions due to the execution time and process of the PLC, since it has to scan the entire program for each cycle. But this will not happen when we do the logic in safety controller, because only the safety data will be transferred to the main PLC as an interrupt input, so that immediate action can be taken and the machine will be stopped without any delay. As I already mentioned, we are connected safety light curtain and safety area scanner with the Omron safety controller. Let us see their function in detail. The light curtain will basically act as the electronic pins in industries. It will have one transmitter and receiver. The transmitter will transmit the parallel infrared light beam to receiver unit. When an object interrupts one or more beams, then the control logic of the light curtain will stop the machine immediately and avoid the accident. The next one is safety scanner, which is usually an area scanner, and it uses laser beams to monitor the working area of machines and robots. When an object or human being interrupts in this working area, then it will get reflected beams and stops the machine immediately. It will cover 270 degree area up to 50 meters. You can also customize the safety zone using the programming software. Next, we will see about advanced vision system. This is high-speed, high-accuracy vision controller to which we can connect up to 8 cameras. As I already said, vision is mainly used for visual inspection, and with this controller, we can do convoy tracking and defect identification applications, which cannot be done in a basic vision camera. We can share real-time images to server with the customized folder name. And it has high-speed communication protocols like EtherCAT, Ethernet, and Profinet to communicate with PLCs and robots. The next is VFD and servo station. Here we have Mitsubishi, Omron, and Delta VFDs. The two Delta VFDs are being used for energy saving concept using DC bus sharing method. And the DC bus of both the VFDs are connected in parallel. During regeneration, the motor will act as a generator, produces energy and send back to VFD. This action causes rise in DC bus voltage, and in DC bus sharing method, this excess voltage is shared to another VFD which drives a motor. Uses the power drawn from the mains. And we are using 5 axes of Omron servo drives with EtherCAT communication protocol. From this, 2 servo axes are used for synchronous function and 3 servo axes are used for ECAM function. The synchronous function is used to drive the 2 axes of servo motor in same speed and in same direction. And the other 3 servos are used for prying shell or cutting concept, where the knife and the product to be moved in synchronous speed to achieve precise cutting and have reduced cycle time. And this is achieved by the ECAM function of the Omron servo drive. Next, we will see about robot and cobot solutions. Here we have Mitsubishi SCARA robot and Omron articulated cobot. The SCARA robot has 600 mm reach and 6 kg payload, and it can be used for high-speed pick-and-place operations and repeated processes like soldering and screwing, where the production rate is the main constraint. And we have Omron cobot with 1300 mm reach and 12 kg payload. The cobot is nothing but collaborative robot, and it is mainly designed to work along with people without causing any damage, as it will stop operating when it hit by an external object or a human being. There is no need to use additional safety devices. And in Omron cobot, we have inbuilt vision camera, using which we can check the orientation and shape of the product, and code reading is also possible with this camera. Hope this video is very useful and informative. Please do visit our experience center for better understanding. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to our experience center.
All this has been discussed. Hello.
Yes, sir.
So that's the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Any doubts, any interactions, we can continue.